My name is Blake Byer. I'm an environmental science major. I'm a graduating senior this year. I've worked here at the greenhouse for 2 years now. I started back in my sophomore year. I came here and met Chrissy and talked with her about, I actually found an injured turtle and brought it here to the animal labs, and we got talking and she wanted me to come work for her. So I've been here for 2 years and it's been a great experience. We're in the main part of the greenhouse right now. Over in this corner we have 5 different pineapple plants in various stages. All of these were actually started from the tops of pineapples. You can see that this one is our smallest one that we have. This one was started last year. And these bigger ones over here, these are about 3 or 4 years old. We actually do get pineapples out of the centers of them. These are 2 of the stumps from the old pineapples. They grow right out of the center, and they usually fruit about once a year. Over here, we have one of our 4 species of aloe. This one's called a candelabra aloe. Now, this big tall plant is a passion flower. They are actually in the same family as passion fruit. They come from the same type of vine. We have 2 different species of them. This red one here, and then in the back there is a blue and white one that flowers for only 1 day. Right over here we have several plants. This is a scented geranium, also known as citronella geranium. This is actually where they get bug spray from.
Insect repellent.
Insect repellent. Under this right here, all of these little woody plants, these are all pomegranates. These are about 2 years old. These were all started from seed, and within a couple of years, hopefully we'll get some pomegranate fruit off of them.
Wow.
Now, over on this side right behind you, this cactus is about 200 years old. It's called a coral cactus or brain cactus. It was donated to the college from a woman up north in North Jersey. She was big into cacti and succulents, and she donated this to the school for us.
200 years old.
200 years old, yep.
Wow.
Over here we have a couple interesting plants. These are called shrimp plants. They get their name because their flowers look like curled up cooked shrimp. Now this section over here is our bonsai section. Now bonsai doesn't mean a specific type of tree or plant. Bonsai refers to the method of trimming the plant. So basically any tree, shrub, or woody plant can be bonsai'd. So these are 2 different examples that we have. This one is a pink flowering little low bush shrub that was trimmed to look like a tree. And this one is actually a ficus tree. You can see it has tiny little figs growing right in there.
Are they inedible?
They're inedible, but they are a species of figs.
More ornamental.
More ornamental than anything. Over here starts our orchid collection. This whole bench is filled with a species of, or a class of orchids called Cattleyas. Over here we have some other orchids that are in bloom.
Are there any native orchids in the Pine Barrens?
There are, I believe, 7 that are found on campus.
Wow.
And Chrissy, my boss, has identified them all and found them all on campus. Over here we have what are called Phalaenopsis orchids. These are most commonly found in like supermarkets and Home Depot and places like that. They're a very hardy orchid, that's why they're typically found there. Most of the orchids that we have in the greenhouse are specialty orchids, where you're not going to find them anywhere else besides specialty places such as this. This one is also another species of orchid, very different than the other ones. It looks more like a worm and leaves out, and it doesn't actually grow in any type of soil. It's actually attached to a piece of cork, and it has no soil or anything. It just grows right through the cork and gets all of its nutrients out of the water and the air. Now, up top here, these are all Oncidium orchids. You can see they're all in bloom with these tiny, bright yellow and brown flowers. We have some other really interesting species of orchids here as well. These are some other orchids that don't have any soil on them. These grow in sphagnum moss hung from a piece of wood, and these grow directly on the wood without any type of medium for the roots to grow into.
Where would you find them?
These are typically found in tropical or subtropical regions, and they actually grow directly on the barks and the branches of trees in wet areas. So they get all of their nutrients from the water that filters through the leaves and straight out of the air. It's a really interesting process. Now this one is a true air plant. He doesn't have anything, no bark, no branches, no wood that he's attached to at all. So his roots are just out in the open. Now over here we have another class of orchids. These are called dendrobiums. This species of orchid is actually native to Hawaii, and their flowers are actually used in the leis that you get in Hawaii. Now we have a couple other species that are in bloom right now. Not all orchid flowers are spectacular and brilliant. Some of them are very simple, like these, while others are very bright and colorful, like these over here. Now, starting right where these Oncidium orchids ended, begins our succulent and cacti collection. We have several different species of jade trees. We have these up here, which are our oldest jade trees. This one is about 60 years old. The one next to it is a trimming off of this one that was started about 40 years ago.
Almost as old as the college.
Yeah. Now the other species of jade that we have are found underneath. They're a little bit smaller. And in the back here we have an interesting species called the trumpet jade. It gets its name because its leaves look like tiny little trumpets. Now, here are some of the other species of aloe that I talked about earlier. This one is called a gator aloe. We also have the golden aloe over here. And then behind you is our largest species of aloe, which most people are familiar with.
Which you find in your sunscreens.
Yeah, you find in your sunscreens and even like health food drinks and stuff like that. We also have a couple fruiting trees in the greenhouse. Over here you can see we have our little orange tree. And right below him we have a lemon tree that has one single little lemon just starting out. Next to them we have a couple more succulents. This interesting one is called a climbing onion. It gets its name because its bulbs at the bottom look very similar to onions. Just like actual onions, it's a member of the lily family. When it flowers, it has green, very small flowers.
It's tiny.
Now over here is our succulent bed. We have a number of different species of succulents all throughout here. Many of them propagate themselves throughout here. They propagate, one specifically like this. These break off very easily, and when they do, they grow an entire new plant out of the bulb that just broke off.
Wow.
So they propagate very quickly and very easily. And the same thing with these. Each petal breaks off, and you can see the ones that broke off are starting their own new plant on the side of it.
What's this little orange one?
That one is a species of cacti. I'm not sure the name directly offhand, but over here we have two different species of a plant called crown of thorns. We have a yellow crown of thorn, and we have a pink crown of thorn.
And then these are your traditional that you're...
Yeah, these are your more common barrel cacti and moon cactus over here. We're now in the tropical room of the greenhouse. This part of the greenhouse typically stays about 10 degrees warmer than the normal area of the greenhouse. It holds a higher humidity level because these plants are found in either the tropics or subtropics. We have our watering system up here that produces a finer mist in order to keep that high humidity level that these plants need to survive. This area gets watered every single day, both by the sprinkler system and by hand, to make sure that every plant gets the water it needs. We have some interesting plants hanging on the wall over here. These are 4 different species of bromeliads, or air plants. Just like those orchids, they don't need any soil for them to grow. All they need is a wet medium for them to soak up their water from. Just like those orchids, they're found on the branches and barks of trees in the tropics and subtropics. Next to our bromeliads, we have some interesting plants. These are called papyrus.
Paper.
Yep, the center of these is actually a whitish paper, and they were actually used in ancient times to be pressed into paper. Next to those, we have another interesting species. They're called horsetails. They're a very, very simplistic and primitive plant. They're what's known as a living fossil. A variety of these have been traced back to millions and millions of years old. If you rub 2 of them together, you feel a gritty texture, and that's because over time these plants have developed an adaptation to absorb silica from the ground to discourage other animals from eating them, because of the silica grinds against the animal's teeth and wears it down. So it discourages other animals from eating it. They've also found dinosaurs that have scratches in their teeth that are believed to have been caused from these plants and their high silica content.
Wow, so it's a natural defense.
It's a natural defense against being eaten. Yep. Over here, this is another very primitive plant. It's called a tree fern. On this side over here, we have a very interesting plant. It's called a monkey cup, also known as a pitcher plant. This one is just developing and hasn't opened completely, but the center will open up right here, and on the inside of the cup, it'll produce a sweet nectar to attract bugs and insects into it that will fall into the cup and be absorbed by the plant.
Wow. Now, do these occur in the Pine Barrens?
This species doesn't occur in the Pine Barrens. The Pine Barrens does have a native pitcher plant, which is, I believe, endangered at this point due to poaching and an illegal plant trade and harvest. Over here is what's called a blood lily.
Beautiful.
Next to our blood lily, we have the rarest orchid in the whole greenhouse. This is called a ghost orchid. It's a leafless orchid that doesn't get any leaves. It doesn't have anything but its bare roots exposed like this. And then from the centers, it will eventually flower these brilliant white flowers. These are endangered. They're native to southern Florida and the Everglades. Up above you, we have our Washington palm tree. This species of palm tree doesn't grow coconuts. All it does is grow giant, big white or green palm leaves. And next to our Washington palm, we have some of our bananas. These banana plants are new shoots off of the old banana tree which died. So these are only about 3 or 4 months old, but you can see they've already grown very quickly. We do get bananas off of these. Every about 3 or 4 years, we get a batch of bananas off of them.
Wow.
Now, on this side here, right in the back, these arrow-shaped leaves, these are from a bird of paradise. We have 2 birds of paradise in the greenhouse, one in the tropical room and one next to the pineapples in the main greenhouse. This whole side here is all lilies and irises. This one most people are familiar with is called a peace lily. Over here we have some more blood lilies. And on the back here we have some yellow and brown irises. Here is our cutting bed. We use this cutting bed to clone plants. If there's any plant that we want a duplicate of, we can take a trimming of it, just like this citronella. Take a trimming of it, put it in here, and eventually it will root and become a clone of the original plant. We also have some jade in here. Here we have a bog terrarium that was set up from all native plants to campus. You can see the tall leafy ones here. Those are all cranberries that were found on campus. The small tree in there, everyone should be familiar with, is a white cedar. We also have some pretty cool plants in here that most people don't get a chance to see on campus. These green and red plants are actually a carnivorous species of plant that were caught on campus. They're called a round leaf sundew. We have 3 different species of carnivorous plants on campus, all of which are sundews. At the bottom here, we have multiple different species of sphagnum mosses, and we also have a couple species of green lichens in here.